Welcome to the Indian Gaming Association's The New Normal webcast. My name is Lisa Johnson. I'm the conference manager for the Indian Gaming Tradeshow and Convention. I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips before we get started. Everyone is muted by default except for our speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box and they'll be brought up at the end. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Victor Rocha, conference chairman of the Indian Gaming Association.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, guests. Welcome to the New Normal, your go-to source for insightful discussions on the gaming industry and critical issues affecting Native American tribes across the United States. I'm Victor Rocha, and joining me is my co-host, Jason Giles, Executive Director of the Indian Gaming Association. Good morning, everyone. Today, we're taking a step back to reflect on IGA25, an incredible week that brought tribal leaders, regulators, operators, and innovators across the country. It wasn't just a trade show, it was a statement. And at a time of political uncertainty and economic pressure, this event gave our industry direction, energy, and a renewed sense of purpose. In other words, it was nuts. Thank God it was us manning the wheel during this crazy time, and it was fun. Gentlemen, welcome. How are you doing?
Great.
I think Jason just had a heart attack. Oh no, there he is.
Yeah, I know.
I thought he dropped dead. I've had that happen before, Jason, so it wouldn't be the first time. Ed, Brian, chairman will be here any second. He's coming in. So gentlemen, let's start with you. Let's go jump right in. First of all, Jason, how are you doing, man?
We're good. I mean, you're right. It was a good trade show and it was a nervous one to pull off because, with the threat of a government shutdown looming the weeks before the show, that would have been really bad, to say the least. So,
Well, you know what, and that's kind of why I think I made that statement in the beginning, which was, it wasn't just more of a conference,
but
it was a statement that, listen, we're here, where our job is to understand where the industry is going and try to have these
right.
conversations that people can navigate the future with some type of certainty. And especially right now, there's so much uncertainty. I thought we did a great job,
Yeah,
and
we
without
lost.
patting myself on the back and stuff like that.
We normally have anywhere from 35 to 50 federal speakers, which obviously, brings in more people. And this year we had zero, which isn't unusual given they've been getting fired and let go, and there's a lot less of them now, but also their travel has been reduced to zero. So
Well, look at
uh,
the NIGC said the whole time, listen, we're going to be there. We set up an entire track for them, gave them their own track,
mhm.
which was Brian was kind enough to give me a room for them. And then they said, we're going to do it. We're an independent. We're going to do it. And then it was like going, listen, we can't come. The BIA has the card for travel. And so so we created that Zoom room for them. And, thanks to FanDuel and DraftKings for paying it, what, 5 grand? Is that what it was, Ed, Brian? Like 5 grand.
Me. Yeah.
Yeah, I went and I said, listen, guys, I need a really big favor. I need 5 grand so that we could have a ridiculous landline hooked up into this room so that the people will still be able to get some of this information for the NIGC. A
Right.
couple sessions they weren't able to do in person, but others they did, and they had Eddie Oko out here, and he did a couple in person. So, we made things work. What are we gonna do? We roll with the punches. That was what
Right.
we do, especially if you're in this industry.
Well,
Once it's showtime, things are rolling. Get on board. There's no stopping. You know what
I
I mean? You just jump on. Isn't that right, Ed?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You got to keep moving forward.
yeah.
Things get in the way. You just jump over them.
Just step over the
I think,
body, keep moving.
when we're doing this thing, hopefully we're still doing it in October, but with the way international travel slowing to the country and everything, I once again I think IGA, we got lucky during COVID when we slipped one in. And on this one, I think we slipped another one in right before we might see the real effects of tariffs, and just the slowdown in travel is the big one that you're
We
already seeing.
dodged a whole bunch of bullets, and G2E, which does a phenomenal job.
Mhm.
But listen, it might be great because the dollar is weakening to be better for international
True.
travel. Do they want to come? That's a whole other story.
Right.
there's a show in July at IGB in London that I'd like to go to, but I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, what's it going to
Mhm.
cost now? You know what I mean? I was so used to the dollar and the pound and the euro being so close to each
Well,
other.
you
And
see it in flights is the big, that's where it really multiplies itself is flights and hotels. So you're right, going over there, but them coming here, it's a lot more attractive, but you don't want to get rounded up somewhere.
Wow, and
But
that
I'm just kidding.
everything I'm reading is they're saying that's exactly what is happening. A lot of people just don't feel like coming. They don't like the attitude of America, and they
Mhm.
don't like the way this administration started off, and they're voting with their dollars. I mean, Vegas is going to get smashed without the Canadian dollar, without
Right.
those Canadian travelers, they're just going to get smashed and it's already showing, So, but that being said, I thought we were fortunate. Chairman's here. I thought it was a great show, guys. And I think the big thing, the first thing, the very obvious thing is having it in San Diego and not Anaheim, I think was a big deal. Everybody, even the first day of Monday, it was kind of rainy. It was cloudy, it was overcast. But that space in San Diego is really wonderful because you're out in that hallway. You get to still get exposure to the sun and the environment. I just like the whole glass wall towards San Diego. It's just a phenomenal space, and everybody likes it. So, and Ed, let's talk about you. Enough about me. Let's talk about you.
Yeah, no, listen, we thought it was great. Obviously, it's a breath of fresh air going back to San Diego. We don't have to use that bad word, the A word anymore, Anaheim. That's never happening again. So, everyone, please share that news with everyone that you talk to. It's never happening. We're good to go with San Diego, or it will be Vegas, will be our home, our other option. And for those of you that doubt Vegas, Vegas actually pulls a little bit more people than San Diego at
Mhm.
times. So it's very good overall. Listen, the show was great. We had, nearly 400 exhibitors. It was one of the largest sizes, about 100,000 square feet that it's been. The attendance was at 7,500 bodies. The things I'd like to point out is we had 101 brand new exhibitors. Um, the DPS Digital Play Summit area was year 2 of doing it. We had a late launch last year. This year we had more time to prepare. We made it look very uh, elegant. The green carpet popped in that area. The stage looked good. The stage was jam packed. We had 9 kiosks in there, and as well as some meeting rooms. Some of the big players in the sports betting realm were in there. And then another thing I'd like to mention, we launched Tribal Bond, which is a new meeting based platform that we did, and we only limited it to 10 companies because we didn't want to dilute the pool of meetings. But I swear I didn't get one person complain. Like, no one person asked for money back. Everyone was very happy with the quality of that they were introduced to through Francis Alvarez, and she did a phenomenal job with this. We're lucky to have her, and I say this in front of everybody here: bring her back again, and again, because it's only going to get better. Like I said, it's a $2,500 investment. Think about trying to get in front of key people. You're going to spend a lot of money, marketing dollars, to get per person to get in front of these quality people, and it was wonderful. The lounge was set up very nicely. The show floor, like I said, was one of the biggest that we've had, and there was a lot of buzz. Like, you could just tell it's a different thing from Anaheim. And that doors opened up. Chairman busted through that ribbon cutting, and you just felt it. Like it again, I think a lot of it is San Diego, and to toot Victor's horn, that education content was killer, and people spoke to me about it. How can I get involved? And everyone wants to be a part of it, and that's a mix that everyone and every exhibitor on this call. Not everyone could speak. Not every year you can speak, but you want to get that blend of a little bit of the golf tournament, a little bit of the education exposure with branding or sponsorships, and then the trade show floor, we can come up with some things. And now we got this meeting based thing, Tribal Blend. If you listen and do a little bit of each thing, you are going to have a great show. no doubt about it. So
Hey, you know what? You got to give a big shout out to the SBA, FanDuel, and DraftKings and those guys for their booth on the floor, which they usually didn't do. But I walked by and they had what, Ocho Cinco
and
uh,
Gronkowski, and you're
yeah,
right. Listen,
Gronkowski.
those names, listen, SBA is now comprised of FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, and Fanatics.
Fanatics.
I'm sure. My gut says they're going to be adding more, but they spent a lot of money with us. They brought celebrities. They were jam packed. They were a pleasure to work with.
They put a basketball court there. They put a
Yeah,
half.
I mean, listen,
They
it was
had
an
a free throw thing.
interactive, fun thing, and like you said, they've never done a booth ever.
Yeah,
So
no. I walked by and I saw that big line and I was like, "What the heck is going on over here?" And someone said Gronk and Ocho Cinco, and I said, "Who?"
yeah, no, and listen, and you also listen. Every other booth on that show floor, all those big companies and small companies, everyone looked professional. Everyone either had some interactive stuff going on. You just felt and saw people smiling, testing games, looking at demos. Like people were engaged. So it's a credit to our exhibitors, and we thank them so much for being there, large and small. Because again, we wouldn't have a show without you guys and the support. And again, I'll mention this now. Reach out to me so I can help you get in front of the membership folks. Being a member of IGA is key. It's not just doing the trade show. They have a lot of benefits that I think are worth the while. The price decrease is number one, but there's other great stuff that the association can do to help you engage this market and get in front of the right people. So that's all I got to say, really.
Thank you, Ed. Wow, you're doing great. Chairman, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi. Good.
You know what? Welcome. We're talking about the show, and one of the great highlights on the trade show floor was the Chairman's Lounge. It's funny how it's evolved in the last 6 years, 7 years. The trade show floor has just become this really hive of activity. It isn't just, people sitting around and talking and eating stale hot dogs. It's actually become a really great social event, and I think one of the highlights of the floor has always been the chairman's lounge, and that's turned into a really spectacular event. What was your favorite events over there at the chairman's lounge?
Yeah, well, first of all, you gotta admit it, guys. The chairman's lounge, they want to see the chairman. Let's just face it. Okay, I'm feeling a little humble today here on the Oneida Reservation in our Midwest office, but you're right. You're right. It's people want to be someplace where people are going to be, and take out the arrogance and all that stuff. The fact that I've been able to serve tribal leadership for now starting my 25th year. Before that, I was with NCAI, so I'm over 30 something years in working with the tribes. So I think I'd like to think that that I'm a popular guy because of my commitment to the sovereign leaders of this nation. However, I also like to think that I'm a popular guy because I go to their communities for the last 30 plus years. But I'm not as arrogant as you may think, because I know that the central point is where the leadership is. So the tribal leaders lounge or my chairman's lounge, wherever we are, they're there because they know the leaders are there. And joking aside, the leadership drives the car, and they're all there. And they're from my standpoint, I just really appreciate being able that they've entrusted us to do this work. And so, the joking aside, it's you guys, it's your team, it's our team, it's my team that makes this happen. We could get rid of Ed Gallo tomorrow and still do this, because
Ouch.
because we have a team. So sorry, Ed, you were the easiest one to pick on.
Wow.
And I enjoy it, and I like my jokes. So, but no,
Laugh, Ed, laugh.
It's endearment. I know he likes me. He doesn't want to admit it. He does like me. He knows I'm his brother. So.
Just try not to show it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's true in
And
all
that
of
blood coming out of your ears, love.
in all of our cases. If we're gone tomorrow, we can continue to do this, and that's the key. The first trade show ribbon cutting setup and formula that I did, I had to spontaneously roll the agenda as it was unraveling. There was no agenda. Nobody really had a set way to do it, and nobody knew where I was going to go or what. And I had to unravel all that spontaneously. And now we have a team, and everybody's got their own little niche. And it's not really about work anymore. It's about really an art form. And the way we do this thing, we've been able to pull it together. Nothing's perfect. That's what we got Ed for. We can blame it on him. But we do have we have a bump here and there. But when it's all done, guys, it's a product of our experience and our work and our teamwork. Every one of us have our own separate responsibility that becomes all of our responsibility when it's done. And I think that whether it's Ed Gallo or myself, blowing our horn or we're first ones to take the blame too, because we'll take responsibility. I think that's the real key of the success here. Let me just take you a couple of my high points, and then again, congratulate all you guys, including Ed Gallo, for the work you do. Sorry, I just can't ease up on this guy.
Wow.
Don't make me call your wife and say you're taking her shopping.
Yeah, I don't need any more help there. I had to pay a
You're
lot
gonna
of money.
send her a list.
Yeah, no, Ed already did that. Thank you. So probably let me take you through a couple of high points because I take a long time sometimes. So I want to one
Okay.
obviously, and you talked about our friend Frances. We finally got got to meet her husband. She got to meet my wife and get to know each other. Never met her husband before. He's a big dude like me. But that breakfast was like a social event. And it was amazing the way that they set that up, and that was just fun stuff. And then to include these folks in the ribbon cutting, and then we went on to our chairman's lounge for our awards, and these were I can't go down the whole list of awards, but this women's matriarchs of Indian gaming. We're going to continue that. Maybe not at that magnitude. Tell you the list real quickly. Lynn Valbuena, Susan Maston, Rachel Joseph, Melanie Benjamin, Denise Harvey, Louise Cornelius, Celeste Hughes, Margot Gray, Rosemary Murillo, and Marianne Andreas. Each one of these I could talk the whole session on, and just about every one of these I've had my experience, my professional life with. And there's just so many giant resumes here, so we won't try to do too many like that in the future. But this is a group that is reflective of recognizing our past as we build our future. And most of these people are here to keep building. So I think
Chairman, we do it a lot about honoring our women. You know what I mean? I go to our events and especially that one when I walked over and I saw that stage and I saw all those women up there and that big crowd and it was pretty amazing. Gay was up there and Rosemary and Margot and I mean people like you said we've known our entire careers and
yeah,
it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
And how we missed, we were so wrapped up in working with Gay with the Sovereign Warrior Award, we had to focus on that. But Gay will head up that next class going into this to this Hall of Nations of matriarchs of women of Indian gaming. She'll head up that class, and she's amazing. But let me come back to that. Real quick, I just want to just finish up the couple of points. One is at the luncheon, Marianne Andreas. Marianne Andreas was kind of a youngster in my father's era when my dad was in Washington many years ago. And when he was development director here in Oneida, I was a young tribal councilman. That's how I met Marianne. She wanted to come to Oneida and visit and see my dad and learn more about gaming 30 years ago. And so I kind of followed in her footsteps, and she's always been a mentor to me. And now she's got my family, but Marianne is just, again, you can't talk about her resume, you don't have time. But 40 years on the tribal council, and a lot of people, these are old school leaders, they like awards, and they go through that all the time. But this one was special. This one's special because it's a memory of Tim Wapato and Rick Hill, and those are folks that Marianne worked very closely with. And so Marianne Andreas is like, she's a living legend right in front of us. Not only a living legend, she's a working legend. She's still on tribal council. And so she went with these matriarchs and they cut the ribbon, and that was really cool. And so again, I'm a giant protege and fan of Marianne, and she came and celebrated that with us. It was just you just can't say enough about that. And then the other one was we did recognize, as it was a long time coming, was Max Osceola Jr. His son came from Seminole. They call him Little Max. He's a grown man and a businessman and a very astute gentleman, but he don't mind being called Little Max. He's lived in that shadow for years. But he came to accept a posthumous recognition in memory of his father. Max Osceola Jr. was one of my best friends, and he died during the COVID. But he historically, there's a lot of names that are connected to that Seminole legacy, and he was certainly one of them. And he and his tribe did so many things that was for but beyond his own people. They helped people all over this country, and Max was one of those. So a posthumous recognition for amazing person in Max Osceola. So there's just a couple of highlights for the show. I could go on and go on, from Marianne Andreas and Gay Kingman Wapato and all those women leaders. Is just amazing.
I just saw a thing the other day. They were talking about the value of Hard Rock. I remember when they bought it for $900 million, and it seemed like all the money in the world. And now here they are with, worth multiple billions of dollars now. I mean, it was just an incredible visionary move. And again, I believe Indian country works best when we're looking to the left and the right and to see what our other tribes are doing. And I think that's the value of IGA. So I think honoring Max was wonderful. They've done incredible work and still continue to do incredible work, showing Indian country how to do it, how it's done, and just a phenomenal job. Well, Chairman, that the Chairman's Lounge has really evolved, and I think we should chain you to that stage, and that you don't go anywhere from now on. That's your space. And what we do is we block out a big time for you, like 3 hours, and you just fill it up, and it's a great part of the floor, which creates that energy. And I know that, I walk that floor, I get so many miles in, and I was just moving in a lot of places I still didn't see. At the end, I had to force myself to catch the tribal leaders, and because there was so much going on between the tribal bond and your stage and tribal leaders lounge, and all the activities going on in the booths and special events and giveaways and lotteries. It was an incredible activity. It was really fun to see and feel.
Yeah, one of those events, the Lightning Boy Foundation, they sent us a hoop dancer in memory of someone we call Lightning Boy, and we had a real nice presentation, a hoop dancing presentation before we cut the ribbon. That was exciting in memory of Lightning Boy, and it's special because it's George Rivera, it's memory of George Rivera's son who died tragically in a car accident, and so he's just young, and he had danced for us many years ago too. So that hoop dancing thing is kind of a trademark for us because of that. So we hope that the Lightning Boy Foundation will continue to be supportive of our efforts.
I had no idea. I saw George and I saw Paulie there, and look
Yeah.
at thing, but I had no idea what it was. And George, as some of you may or may not know, is a famous Native American sculptor out of New Mexico, and just a dear friend to everyone who
And a
knows him.
former tribal governor from Pewaukee Pueblo.
He's really amazing and just a great guy, And who we haven't talked to is Brian. Brian, how are you
Where you
doing?
at, Brian?
Let me
Good,
get back.
good. No,
I just am reflecting on everything that's been said so far. When you look at the event, it truly is an amazing event overall because it's not just one event. I just want to say congratulations to Chairman Stephen, the annual meeting that happened, elected again. Congratulations, Chairman. But you think about the luncheon, things that were going on at the luncheon with the donations from Shakopee and Massatucket and AGEM and things that we're donating things. Golf in the rain. It's like place is packed in the rain. It was going well. DPS was a success in its second year here. Tribal Bond, as Ed mentioned, was a waiting list for people for that. That doesn't even mention the lounges, the Tribal Leaders Lounge, the House of Blues we haven't mentioned.
Yeah.
Arts and Crafts was, I think, was the biggest ever on it. So there was so much going on all at once. Anywhere you turned or walked, there was something else going on. The women's breakfast, the ribbon cutting, the IGT had those folks painted, as cats and kittens and all these types of things. You mentioned FanDuel and everything. There was never nothing to do on it, and each one of these areas has an impact collectively, but if for the folks listening and everything, each one of these areas has to have a captain. It has to run like a well-oiled machine, and it did. I think it really did. It felt that way. The audience was great, and it was really great to be back in San Diego. So I was just trying to take a breath after the show and everything because it was such a success.
Well, and you know what, Brian, the after show events too, after we were going, there was parties on boats and Padre games and dinners. And I mean, it was just so many that I mean, I didn't go to any of them, but I knew there was so many of them,
You were at the IGT party. I saw you.
Yeah, I did play that one. Yeah, my band played it. And by the way, because I'm a guitar player, obviously, we don't play the IGA events because I'm the conference chairman. It's just a bad look. There's just no way around it. There's just no way around it. So, you know what? I do the private event every year, and it's fun, and we have a good time. And again, all these parties, all these events, it's a great social event. It isn't. It just feels like San Diego's just feels more dynamic. I don't know if it felt like it got lost in Anaheim, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, Victor, the thing is, and Ed somehow outsold himself from San Diego to Anaheim, back to San Diego to Anaheim, and again. So, Ed's like that proverbial, you know, hockey stick stock up there, and so Ed sold it at Anaheim. We just didn't get the attendees we would have liked at Anaheim, but the company still came. I imagine some of that is, you come to a new city. There's got to be a little intrigue and whatnot, and attracting. And frankly, we crap on Anaheim a lot, but logistically, Anaheim's a lot easier than San Diego, and it's a lot easier on our staff too, just getting around. But people vote with their feet. That's why we had to get out of Phoenix. And San Diego, definitely, you just can't beat that energy. You show up and there's 40,000 Padre fans there the first day, and the Gaslamp district is hard to beat. And then from our perspective, Brian, the hotels, if we could get to a point where we were selling out San Diego, well, then we're like Comic-Con type show or something. So so San Diego's where we have to be, and the folks, they'll turn out again. I'm telling you, a lot of that, whatever the numbers were in the end, some of it was just because of the government uncertainty, and I know that drove attendance down. Like I said, if we lose federal government speakers, we also lose all the support and everything else that the government brings with it.
Well,
To
I
show.
mean, we had all of February with all the
Mhm.
political trauma
Right.
and creating the uncertainty, and especially, I had tribes that couldn't come because of
Right.
the government funding and because of the contracting shutdown and the
Mhm.
uncertainty with that. And they said, listen, we did the Tribal Energy Summit, and I thought that was very successful for what we did. I think there's things we can do better, but it was really difficult because people were canceling, the DOE was canceling all the government guys and all the uncertainty with the grants and stuff like that. But I thought it was a really good idea to have it in the middle of all that uncertainty, is have some voices saying, listen, this is what we're doing. Here's what we think is going to happen. And here's where tribes should position themselves to take advantage of the opportunities that are being created. So we went in with that mindset,
One of the funny things that's going on right now, and NIGC was kind enough to do Zoom for our show, but one of the reforms that the Interior told their employees about is they're going to start using AI and virtual meetings a lot more to save on travel costs, which is just kind of funny because, they did this mandatory return for everybody 5 days a week. And they don't even have the office space anymore for the most part for all these workers, but now they want to go back to doing Zoom. So, I don't know. Our show is going to have to prove itself to be adaptable in that manner. It seemed to work well with the NIGC. I'm always skeptical of, people come into a room and they see people blabbing up on a screen. It's just not the same. I know, you get connection issues, but if the government's going to make an effort towards better connectivity for their workers to save on travel costs and all that, at least that's their justification so far. We're going to have to start looking, because I know that the Res conference really suffered way more than we did with lack of federal participation. And, I don't know, Brian, I know that stuff's expensive still. I mean, just to set up the Zoom for our board meeting is ridiculously expensive. And to make it even more interactive and all that, you got to get the bigger package, and so that people can chime in, and the costs keep going up and up. So, but our show's always been adaptable, and I think we'll just have to do that, Victor. I mean, it could be you could double your sessions, half Zoom, half in person. And now,
listen, there are so many people that would like that, and we could use that. People who don't have access, they don't have time, and that would be wonderful. And I have no problem.
Then what do you do about letting other audience members in, virtually, that didn't come to the show? At what point do you start cannibalizing your show?
Well, what G2E does is they do one room they have set up for being televised in sessions, and then you stick them in one room and the rest of them are done. So you put the ones that you think are important, which I think is a great idea. And so whatever it takes to get the information out there,
right?
That's our job,
right?
So. And if it doesn't work, chairman will blame Ed.
Yeah, back to that.
Just keep in mind, we have a year to go. I wouldn't forget about G2E. We don't care about G2E. We care about us. Okay, so we're okay. And listen, 35 people missing from government is not a big number, everyone. So let's not panic.
Wow.
Just so everyone knows, and I'm probably stealing Brian's thunder here, but we were up 10% from Anaheim, which was still on par with San Diego 2023, and actually a few more bodies ahead of San Diego 2023. So no more doom and gloom. Let's forge ahead. We're winning here, everyone.
We're winning. Right.
Listen, it was a great event. I got so many compliments from people just really loving the floor, loving the sessions. What we did over at Digital Play with Allison McCoy.
Right. Another one.
That was just, it was what I had wanted the whole time. That was my vision for that space, was to create, real dynamic space. Actually my edict was I wanted it to be a place where we ask uncomfortable questions. And that was pretty much my edict, to have these conversations that aren't exactly what we want to hear, but what we need to hear, and that's kind of what I wanted. And it was just so beyond my aspirations, just to have every seat filled. That was awesome. That was really cool. And the speakers were phenomenal, and I think it'll be even better next year to get even more speakers, but I was really happy with the selection and stuff like that. So then we had the Tribal Leaders Lounge, and that was great. We got great reviews back from that. Hey, so what can we do to make it better, guys? What can we do to make it better in 2026?
Listen, go ahead. I don't want to anyone's stuff. My opinion is we just have we have such an opportunity here, like to bring in more of an audience. Like my marketing team is working really hard to make sure the lists are accurate. We constantly have to keep updating stuff because obviously there's a lot of turnover, but there's no reason why we can't be from 7,500 to 10,000, 12,000 attendees. And this is something I want to challenge all of us on this call. Like, let's do this together. We could do it. IGA's got the lists, the resources. You pair it up with us. Like, we just got to focus a little bit more. Like, again, the meeting thing, that was a small thing, the tribal bond thing. I know it's going to explode next year, and it's going to be probably 50 companies participating. Yeah. So Francis will be challenged. But having people like a Francis and having, Jason, Chairman, Brian, Sam, Victor, everyone knows everybody, and just reaching out to whoever we speak to, tribes or whatnot. How can we bring more people? How can we entice more job titles from your tribe to come? Because the California tribes, they send 30 people, top to bottom, titles. Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods, where Brian and I are from, they're arguably one of the top 2 dogs going nationwide. That they send 5. Like, how can we make them bring 10? How can we get people that aren't coming to the show? Like, why don't they come? They're simple questions, but we need answers. And again, that's the key. If we can get this to 10,000 people coming, do you know how big this show would be?
Oh, yeah.
Now you're talking G2E numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm saying size-wise for this floor.
Well, listen, that's been the goal. And again, going into this, having that uncertainty, and from January 20th all the way to the show, I think we adapted pretty well. I think we'll have a better shot next year. There'll be a little more certainty. Brian, what do you think we can do to make it better?
I think I agree a lot with what Ed said, and we can even challenge the folks out there. Is there something that we can do special? Maybe first timers, from the East Coast and things. Maybe do something special for them, a special welcome. One thing that we did do this year is every company that exhibited for the first time, they got a handwritten thank you note on it. It was handwritten. The team wrote it out and said thank you and personally delivered to them. So all these little kind of touches and things to bring it up on it. So Francis did an outstanding job with a waiting list. Is there something else? Is there something that we're missing? More on if a tribal casino is rebuilding or doing something, how do we bring in their designers and those types of things that might even bring in construction folks and those types on it? So that's it. Or how do we do something special even more for the East Coast tribes to bring them west?
The deep dive on Monday was, that's how you really start to tell, whether the show is going to be a success or not. It's always a little nerve-wracking because, it's after golf. It starts at 1, it goes till 5, it's 4 sessions. And, I decided we would talk about interactive wagering. I interviewed Jason Robbins from DraftKings. I invited him and he said yes, like in a minute, which those guys, you usually have to jump through hoops to get them, and Christian Janetsky from FanDuel. And it actually had turned into a thing where other heads of sports betting companies wanted to join that panel too. But I said, listen, it has to be these guys in context of interactive wagering and setting yourself up. And, it was a 4-part session about, doing feasibility, whether white label, partnering with big guys, and then getting, making sure that you know how to negotiate contracts. It was packed the whole time. I was shocked, and it was overcast. And I think that just really set the tone for what to expect the next day. And then Tuesday in the education sessions was just jamming from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. It was jamming, and the thing that I love about San Diego is that everybody is in one space there. They're in that one hallway. If you want to meet everyone, and everyone kept telling me this is the greatest thing. Everybody I need to see, everybody I want to talk to is right here. And I was like, that was our idea. That's what we wanted too. And remember when I first started, we used to have education sessions and conferences going off, trade show going at the same time. And we split that so that I want to make sure everybody's either here at one time or they're here at one time. And it makes it easier to network and do business deals and stuff like that. So, deep dive was phenomenal, beyond my wish, and it actually was pretty easy to put together. That was I knocked that out pretty quick. And then the education sessions are always difficult, but credit where credit due. The submissions were the best I've ever seen. There were so many good submissions from the members and people and outsiders and stuff like that. And that's always the hardest part of my job, is saying no to great ideas, and that's why we have the Tribals Leader Lounge. Is we have a place for some of these ideas to live that maybe they don't fit in the education session, but they do. And by the way, the Tribal Leaders Lounge is meant for product and services pitches. So it's a place you can go put your best foot forward. You have screens and presentations, and it was always wonderful to go and see them talking and see butts in the chairs, and that's exciting. So we're really doing our jobs, elevating the conversations, making people understand what the latest technology and where the industry's going. So that was real fun.
So Victor, let me just sum up just a couple quick things. One, and the names I'm looking for is for Lightning Boy Foundation. It's in memory of Valentino Rivera. That's George and Felicia's son who died as a result of a traffic accident. But Felicia's the one that made it happen through Lightning Boy Foundation. She sent the hoop dancers to us, and so again, I want to get my names right. I've known Felicia for many years as George's wife, and of course, I've known George for years. It's a special thing. It's a special thing because every time those hoop dancers dance, they dance in honor and memory of their late son, Valentino. So I wanted to make sure I said that. Probably one of the high points that we wanted to do also that we accomplished, we went and found Frank Ducheneau, who was spent many years working in Washington, D.C., and asked him to come and spend some time with us. And he brought his wife, Ernie Ducheneau, and she used to work for my father back in the day, way back when in D.C. So these two people are D.C. products and came to spend some time with us. That was important. And also the president from Navajo Nation, Mr. Boo Nygren. So we had some policy discussions. And in our membership meeting, I'm not going to go down the list, but I'll tell you, there were some very powerful statements made there. We don't really publicize that. We put out a general summary of that. But I'll tell you right now that that meeting was very substantive, and the leaders spoke. And I think that was one of the most respected and informative reflections of the leadership voices at our membership meeting. So I want to mention that. And the only other thing, I probably mentioned it a couple times already, but again, the women's honoring women, it's indigenous women in leadership are governing our nation as women leaders. That was the panel. And that was Melanie Benjamin, the Secretary Treasurer from Shakopee, Metawakan Sioux community, Ashley Comforth, and Christy Maudlin, Sue Maston, former chair lady and former president of NCAI, and Denise Harvey, our board member and a tribal council member herself. That panel was very informative. Again, demonstrating our message of women in leadership. And the other one I have to, maybe just because my daughter was on that panel, but the panel Indian Women in Entrepreneurship. I was with Twyla True from True Enterprises and Margaret Ellis from She Rises. These are kind of I won't say young and old. I don't go there. Margaret is new to entrepreneurship. She owns her own business. And Twyla is very experienced Indian business person and very successful at what she does. So maybe a little beginning and a more experienced person, but both of these ladies spend their time, their life trying to empower other women in business. And that's the key message there, that they spend most of their time helping others understand the entrepreneurship and some of the challenges of learning to work in business. So I wanted to mention those folks because these are the kind of things that help us make the world go round, help us do what we got to do. And we got to do more of this. And we got to, again, get our message. Maybe Jason could tell us a couple more highlights from that membership meeting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just serious business with the tribal leaders, and I'm so glad they stuck around in the afternoon and helped us form our messaging moving forward. And we're going to have another big meeting in May 13th here in DC to carry on and carry out what they directed us to do, which was have a meeting in DC and get in front of some of these folks. So we're going to do that. Uh, you know, we talked a lot about illegal gambling out there, and where we're moving on with that. Victor, that's probably something that's going to need its own, special attention at our mid-year. We're going to be at Shakopee in Minnesota, September. What is that again, Brian?
8, 9, 10.
8, 9, 10, the week after Labor Day. So September 8, 9, 10, Shakopee. So, these things. The business part of it is a really big deal, and that's how we're going to get our tribal governments and tribal leaders there. But as Ed said, to get this thing up over to where we want it to be, what we see at G2E, what we see at ICE, we're open to all suggestions, and we heard people loud and clear on the golf. We're talking about that. Everyone loved it, but I know these companies are complaining about the costs of having folks sit around for 2 days because they don't really. I heard somebody mention it earlier. We're considered a day and a half show, which when you think about it, we pack so much in that short day and a half when the actual working days for our companies and our floor folks. So we're going to keep working it to make it bigger, and that's part of bringing the tribes in, because it is tribal gaming. And one of the things, because we've all been to ICE, you go to ICE, and there's a huge disparity in what is at ICE in terms of it. It looks a lot like our trade show floor, glitz, glamour, and then you go to these European casinos, and they don't look anything like our casinos or what the floor looks like at ICE. I gotta believe that they're attracted to our business model over here. And you mentioned it earlier, Victor, with the dollar, with whatever this intentional drowning of the dollar is, it will make America more attractive for other goods and services. So, if it's costing folks a lot of more money to build, their machines in Reno and Vegas, even in Canada, there's so many European gaming companies that are ready to come over. And I have not seen an AI display like I saw in ICE. I'd love to get something like that on our show floor. I haven't seen that at a G2E or anywhere else where, to your point again, Victor, if you had an AI display, it literally looks like you're in an arena. If we were in a forest walking through and
Talk
there's
about that big
arrows at you.
one that you walked in at at ICE, right?
If you sat 100 people down in a room and you had a screen and it looked like you were right there with the person, that's a whole nother level at that point.
Hold on.
But it's there, Brian, because we walked in there and took part in it at ICE.
I went in.
Yeah, I did too. It was crazy.
Hold on tight, because if you're not, you're going down. You're going to fall.
Yeah, you
down.
didn't have to put on a VR or anything.
Nothing.
So, if that kind of stuff is coming out there, we want our show to be the first to implement it and start using it. And if you're
we are talking to the European Casino Association about creating closer ties, between IGA and them over there in Europe. And I think something like that, those conversations, and they're very willing to have these conversations.
Right.
They're everyone that I've met over there is great. They all want to come to America. Or they did. They did. They did at the beginning of January when I was there.
Right.
So, and by the way, ICE was great too. I mean, I'm glad our show, but that was really fun in Barcelona. And, the technology, you're absolutely right. There is that cognitive dissonance. You go to this incredibly technologically advanced floor and then you go to their casinos like, wah, wah.
It's hard to find food at their casino. I mean, it's crazy.
That's the whole thing. No, you can gamble, but you can't have fun. That's the European model.
Yeah.
That's what they did in Germany. That's what we saw in Austria. That's what we've
London.
seen in London, in
Yeah.
Italy, you can have fun, you can gamble, but no fun, or food.
I wish I could disagree with you guys, but I was there too. So, but I wanted to shift real quickly because I forgot somebody on this list here. We did the Danny Signs Humanitarian Award. Danny's a gaming consultant, passed away several years ago, and we honored Tribal Chair Lady Erica Pinto from Hamul, and then Kurt Holmes from Kalispell, and we gave those awards. And again, their message was it's we do that at the Chairman's Lounge shortly after the ribbon cutting, and that went real well for us. In addition to that. Imagine this: the company has made donations to tribal colleges, and they're going to write me a check for another tribal college this spring when I do a commencement speech. So we're really excited about them helping others and then recognizing important leaders in the gaming industry. And so I wanted to mention that. And I think it's important to really talk about what the message that we receive that resonates and the stuff that we're doing on Capitol Hill. I think, and again, I appreciate the update for Jason, but again, that's really the drive. I know we're talking business, and I know Ed's going to guarantee us we're going to have 10,000 people next year, and I wrote that one down, Ed. And I'm going to help you though. But I think these are the kind of goals that we have to set. But I think it's really important to appreciate the things that we've accomplished and recognitions. And I think it's important that we also take the time to thank our respective staff and colleagues and the people that work with us because everybody's working hard and none of us are perfect, but we give it our all, and we put our heart and soul into it. So again, just let everybody know that your teams, let them know how much that we appreciate the work that you and your teams do. I say that to you and everybody else, even Ed Gallo.
Well, yeah, and you know what? There's one more in there that I was contacted by Erica Kuzumon in the Choctaw Nation, and they wanted to honor Kristen Lynn Lumley, a tribal member from up in Washington that worked for the Choctaws and just became family. And she passed away, and they got in touch with me and asked if they could do it. And it's so wonderful to see those kind of relationships, and it was so important to them to honor her legacy. And you've created that kind of space, Chairman, that people say, listen, we want to get on that stage, we want to honor someone who meant a lot to us, and we want you to know how important she was to us. And they were so appreciative. And it's an honor to do that. It's an honor to honor the memory of all these people who have come forth. And I think that's what your space has created. It's so dynamic. There's always someone there. There's always a good place to get a good cup of coffee or a good cup of tea. And I think we've created a cup of tea, a really dynamic space on the floor. It isn't just a trade show. Listen, I have to be honest, my mentality, I keep thinking I want it to be like a midway, where you go and there's excitement, like a carnival, and not like a trade show, but to have some excitement. And I think we're close to achieving that. I think we've created a really great trade show floor, and I'm really proud of what we've done. And I remember walking away and being happy on Thursday and
Yeah.
exhausted. That was a job well done. And as you said, in September we have a mid-year over at Mystic Lake.
Mystic Lake.
Yep. We'll be talking about, what's going on with the government. We'll be talking about gaming. We'll be talking about sports betting in Minnesota. Hopefully we'll have the governor and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan and all those people involved in the stuff like that. So we're going to have a really great agenda. That'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. I'm almost done, so it's up to you guys when you guys want to release it. So, is there anything else that we can leave? Ed, do you want to? I know you have to leave real soon, so you can start. you want to say anything to our kind
Yeah,
listeners?
no, just again, thank you again for the support year after year. We appreciate it. And again, Victor just mentioned Mystic Lake for mid-year. We've never been there before, so this is going to be quite great in my opinion. And it's September 8th to the 10th, so I've already started selling tables, sponsorships. So get on board, shoot me a note, and I'll get you the information as quick as I can. And let's move on to the next one.
I think,
Brian?
I
Oh,
think,
Chairman.
I'm sorry, Brian. I'm just
Nope.
want to interject. I'm sorry. Just I want to emphasize the policy statement and the membership meeting that was probably the most successful aspect of this conference. But again, highlight this matriarchs of Indian gaming. I'm just looking at this list that I have, and I could tell you a story from each one of these individuals on this list, and it's like a pinch in comparison to their overall resume. So that was certainly a highlight of the show. And again, we have our orders, and we're reacting to those. We've scheduled a tribal leaders a meeting in Washington because we have to. It's appropriate, and we're going right to work. And there's some fun stuff going on here. And like you said, like you guys said, watching the show, watching it evolve around us, we knew this was a successful show and we were feeling it. It's nice to not have to look back and think, did we have a show? Did we have a good show? We knew we were having a good show as it unraveled. And that's the key to you folks, to your teams, and to everybody working so hard. And so I'm pretty excited about that. But most excited about the marching orders we get from the leadership, and that's what we're doing right now. That's what we're reflecting on as we schedule a tribal leader summit in Washington, and we work with NCAI and our regional associations so we get our work done. So we're ready to go to work. And as far as it doesn't seem like maybe when I look back, but to see that I'm starting this week, starting my 25th year in this job, and that I've been working connected to Washington, D.C. through this job at NCAI for over 30 years. I can't imagine that. But what I will tell you folks is what I told the leadership. We're working. We're going to get this done. And the battle that is respectful. The battle is like a chess match, and it's utilizing the leadership's knowledge to be able to take this issue on. But it's more like they're all professors, and we have to teach, we have to educate, we have to let folks know who we are and why we do what we do, and what we stand for. And you guys are a strong part of that machine. So thank you very much for your folks' leadership and the teams the folks that work under your tutelage.
It was a crazy show, man. You know what I mean? I don't think there was a time when usually you have a time to take a breath. And I think I took a breath, exhaled the entire show, and until Thursday. I inhaled on Monday and exhaled on Thursday, because
Yeah.
it was always something going on. And the floor was just beginning to end. And like Chairman is absolutely right. And by the way, congratulations on your re-election, Chairman. And, we have a new treasurer and we have a new secretary and friends of ours already. We know it's
Yeah,
Indian Gaming is and Tribal Gaming is in good hands. Congratulations, Chairman. That must feel good.
does. It
Well, you
does.
should be. You've done a good job, man. We really appreciate you. Great leadership and friendship too. And Brian, excellent job. Without you, man, where would we be? You know what? We wouldn't be half the organization. The show would without you and Ed. You guys are amazing. And Sam and Lisa and Allison McCoy who helped with digital play. And there's lots of other people in there that I haven't mentioned and stuff. So it's a group effort, no doubt about it. And
100%.
so, you know what? And then we have G2E. We'll be there and we'll have content there and we'll talk about that as soon as we're ready about that. And then we start talking about ICE Barcelona again, and life goes on. But, our job is never boring. That's for sure. Always challenging, never boring. That's for sure. So, listen, everyone, I want to thank you guys. Chairman, thank you. Brian Sullivan, thank you. Ed Gallo, thank you so much for rolling with the blows, brother. You're a good man. Jason, is that it? We'll be back
Yeah.
next week, won't we?
Yes.
We'll be back next week talking about, I haven't decided what we're going to talk about. It'll be something prediction markets.
Right.
I promise Scotty Hill will talk about native businesses and stuff like that. That's probably at the end of the month. So thank you, everyone. Great
Thank you.
show. We appreciate you guys showing up for the webinar every week. Thank you so much. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Excellent.
Great. Thanks all.